Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday, September 16th, 2021. I am Solid Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. Hello, Juju. How are you? Welcome back. I'm hoping today is going to be a fun show. Okay, let's get started. So, today my show is titled Dear Abby. And I would like for my listeners, if they would, either by joining in and speaking, or if they want to put it in the chat, to just answer some Dear Abby questions that I have. And it's about giving advice. I'm interested to see the type of advice that um, that people have, because people have difference of opinions. People uh, choose to do things in certain ways. We all are not the same. If we were, it would be pretty boring. But I would just like to see, what type of advice you would give. So I am going to throw it out there. So, Juju, if you would like to type in the chat, this is my first question. Um, and I've asked this question before, and I think you've heard this question before. Should you try to change someone's mind? So, dear Abby, should you try to change someone's mind even if okay, okay, that note came up pretty fast. Okay. My part two to that is, what if their opinion of what they were thinking, their opinion, their point of view was dangerous? Would you try to change their mind, or would you just let it go? So that's the question that I have. Yes, okay. For me, for the most part, I don't try to change anyone's mind. People are going to think what they want to think. If they want to change their mind, they can come around. They'll eventually come around. But if it was something that was dangerous, well, then yes. Welcome, OJ28. So, just to recap, my question, or today's show is, Dear Abby. I have a couple of questions that I want to throw out to you guys, and just to see, the difference of opinions or advice that you would give. And what I just asked Juju was, should you change someone's mind? Should you change someone's point of view? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is, should you change someone's mind or try to change their point of view if their point of view was dangerous? So that is a question that I have, or the first question that I have. So, OJ, do you have an opinion about that? You can either come on and talk, or you can put it in the chat, whichever works for you. Or if you have an opinion. And the reason I asked that question is because, once again, we come back to everything that's going on in the world today and in today's society, and everyone has a difference of opinion. Everyone, thinks, some people think we should go left, some people think we should go right, some people think we should, go backwards or stay in the center, or go up or go down. So, that's why I, just wanted to try to ask what people think. Hello, Crucible Man. Welcome. Okay, I'm going to hold off for a moment, see if anyone else joins, because I will be repeating myself. Thank you for the likes, everyone. I appreciate it always. Okay, so once again, I'm asking people. I have 3 questions that I want to ask, and just to get again everyone's different points of view or opinions. And the first question is, should you try to change someone's mind or point of view? And the second part of that question is, should you try to change someone's mind if their point of view was dangerous? So, Crucible Man, I'll throw that out to you. Um, Thank you, Juju, for sharing the show. I appreciate it. So, Juju said no to the first part, that you should not try to change someone's mind, and yes to the second part, if someone's point of view was dangerous. And I say no to the first part and yes to the second part. So, Crucible Man, do you have an opinion? Interesting. Okay, OJ, you're saying yes and yes. Okay, so you're saying yes, that you should try to change someone's mind. Why would you? Welcome, Shy Lady. Why would you try to change someone's mind? Okay, Crucible Man, you have to. I did not mute you because you are not. You don't have the mic. You have not asked for the mic. There we go. All right. You should be able to come on now. And
Hello.
if okay, there you are. Okay.
I was about to say until OJ chimed in that this could be a boring show because I agree with both you and Juju. Although I don't think it's going to stay boring.
Okay. All right. Just got started. It was already boring. All right. Okay. So, but you didn't answer the question. So, do you think you should try to change someone's mind for the first part?
Well,
And do you think you should try to change someone's mind um, if their point of view is dangerous?
yeah, I guess dangerous is a relative term. Dangerous to their welfare, dangerous to their um, to their social life because they're going to be outcast if they take a certain position. I guess you're probably referring to dangerous for me from a health standpoint. In that case, absolutely yes. But it's been my experience, and again, I'm guilty of this, that we are all so invested in our points of view, regardless of the level of seriousness. It could be anything from, politics to sports to pop culture. We all have spent our lives being invested in certain positions, and we feel validated when our positions are reinforced or agreed by somebody else. And a lot of our identities and self-worth, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, are tied to the positions that we've invested in for so many years. And even in the face of countervailing facts, it's hard for people to relinquish those positions because it's something they've come to identify with. So unless you can really present hardcore facts that are unalienable and people just can't ignore them, I think it's very difficult, even if you're stating facts, for people to relinquish long-held points of view that they've spent their lives invested in.
Okay, you have a point. But when I say okay, all right, okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to I'm not going to go into that. Okay, so Shy Lady, do you have anything you want to chime in on? If not, I'm going to go on to my next question. No. Okay. All right. So my next question is, if you're writing to Dear Abby, how do we get rid of COVID? Anybody wanna take that one? Um, my personal view is we get rid of COVID, and I'm talking not just in the United States. It would be globally. If just for I don't know if it would take 2 months or 3 months, whatever, but if just 2 months, if everybody just put on a mask, got vaccinated, we can crush it. Um, uh, if not, I do believe we will be living with COVID for forever. Um, so, well, not watching the news is, to me, is not going to stop COVID. Whether you're watching the news or listening to the radio, or you're just sitting in your house not talking to anyone, the world is still going on around you, and there are still issues. Um, Shy Lady says, I don't know if we could actually get rid of it. Okay, and why do you say that?
Well, it's kind of like the flu, I guess. The flu has been with us forever, and it hasn't gone away. So, and not everyone gets the flu. I do get that, and not everyone gets the flu shot. But still, I don't know. It's taken out hundreds of thousands of people, and I'm not sure if there's a cure for it or not.
So,
Hopefully, the way they got rid of measles and all that stuff, maybe, I don't know.
well, okay, and you look at that. I mean, you look at polio. Polio is for the most part is gone because they asked people to get polio shots. Everybody lined up, and they got their polio shots. I mean, if you're old school, you have that vaccination mark that's on your shoulder. Um, yes, the flu has been around, and yes, the flu, does and can kill people, but it's not like COVID. You go back to 1917, and you had that pandemic. They were able to get rid of it. I don't think COVID is like the flu because it keeps mutating into um, something worse. And you either have people who are saying mask up. We're trying to do our best to make sure that people can go to school and go to work, and then you have people who are like, no, states wide open, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that, but yet you look at the cases of COVID that they have. So that's why I'm asking, how do you get rid of it, or how do you at least taper it down? Because whether or not you ever get sick, whether or not you never get the flu, you know, um, if you cough on someone, you can give them a cold, which could, for them, it could turn into the flu. It can turn into pneumonia. So, you know, um, and OJ, that's what I'm saying. Flu is mild where COVID is a pandemic, and the flu is not like COVID. So I ask, how do you get rid of COVID? Do we ever get rid of COVID? So flu is mild, okay, where COVID is a pandemic, and OJ says, and kills people by the dozen. Yes, it does. You know, um, Children are dying. Okay, there you go. Crucible Man, you're on.
I don't know at this point, and I do agree there are differences between. I'm certainly not a doctor by any stretch, so I'm not even going to pretend. But I do think the flu is different from COVID. But we forget how many people the flu kills every year, in spite of the fact that people get shots. I have a sister who gets a flu shot every year. She gets the flu at least twice. I haven't had a flu shot in probably 25 years. I haven't had the flu in 25 years. Everybody's different. But I believe one of the reasons why we're not going to be able to get rid of COVID is the poor way that this has been handled from a communication and credibility standpoint. And I'm talking about primarily the government, the Anthony Fauci's of the world. I thought the whole thing, and I've seen the tapes. I'm not just kind of riffing here. I've seen the interviews, and I've seen them many, 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 many times. He talks out of both sides of his mouth, mask or not, on a regular basis. And I think where this has really, really jumped the rails is we were told that once the vaccine is available, that was going to enable some sort of a herd immunity, and that was going to kind of be the panacea. And once you're vaccinated, you don't have to worry about unvaccinated people, and you don't have to wear a mask. Well, how long did that last? Now all of a sudden, vaccinated people are also in that pariah group if they don't have a mask on. So I believe the ship has sailed on getting COVID under control simply because of the poor way the government has handled the communication. Nobody trusts a word they say anymore, and that includes Anthony Fauci.
Okay, and I'm going to say that we can say Anthony Fauci, but let's go back to the very beginning when we first found out about COVID. When it was coming out of Wuhan, it was like almost a matter of time before it came here. And when it got here, when people were aware of it was here, you want to talk about the government. The government did not handle it right. So we look at where the government was last year. If we had, and I will agree that with Dr. Fauci, I will say that when they first started talking about masks, and they said, healthy people don't need to wear masks. And I thought that was kind of silly because I'm like, well, if you're healthy, you want to stay healthy, so you should wear a mask. Me personally, I put on a mask, but the government knew how dangerous COVID was. And the government, it should have been a federal mandate across the board. It should not have been, every state deals with it themselves, because then you have 50 different people giving 50 different, rules for their states, and everything just runs amok. You have people who, I'm not going to give blue states are not going to have this, but red states are going to have this. Absolutely right. The government handled it the wrong way. And going back to Anthony Fauci, yes, he did make mistakes. But now it's like people want to get back to work. People want to get back to school. In order to do that, can we just put on a damn mask? And in terms of getting the shot, yes, it was supposed to be you get the shot and you shouldn't have to worry about it. But unfortunately, it mutated. It mutated into something else. Now, now they're talking about an omega and all this other stuff. It's like it mutated into something else, like the flu does. Every year, the flu mutates. So people can blame one particular person or one particular group, whatever. But the bottom line is, for me, my opinion, when COVID first came out, the government, and not just in America, but other governments across the world, did not handle it correctly. And for the United States, it should have been a federal mandate across the board, not allowing 50 states, 50 different people, allowed to make their own rules, and then everybody's trying to buy masks for their or PPE for their own their own states and what have you, and making sure that their medical people and personnel have it. I think it's ridiculous that if you're in a car accident in certain states, you have to go 200 and 300 miles away because the ICUs are filled with COVID patients. That's ridiculous. So, does anyone want to say something to that? Agree with me, disagree with me? You're more than welcome to have the mic. Crucible Man, did you want to comment, or Shy Lady, or Juju, or anyone?
Yeah, I think what we have going on here right now is everybody knows the short attention span that Americans have, and I believe we have been psychologically over COVID for some time now. People, as a rule, in America are very independent minded. They do not like being told what to do. It's part of how this country was founded. And I think when you open the door to mandates, you will get this vaccination or whatever the punishment is going, the consequences are going to be. That's a very slippery slope. And pretty soon, do we mandate everybody must wear a seatbelt? I know that's a law right now, but do we mandate, flu shots? What don't we mandate? And when we start relinquishing our freedoms unilaterally to the government, I don't know that you want people who have a lust for power. Let's face it, that's why they're in government. This public service hooey is just that, hooey. They're there for power and they're there to get rich. So if you want to hand over life decisions to that group, have at it. I prefer to keep my independence as much as possible because, like I said, it's a slippery slope.
And I agree with you there. It is a slippery slope, but once again, when you want to talk about mandates, it's like we were told you have a seatbelt law. That is a law. I didn't see the pushback on that. I remember when they told people that you could no longer smoke in buildings. I used to be a smoker. I was one of those people who were outside smoking. When it was 20 degrees outside, um you know after 9/11, after that guy was found trying to get a bomb in his shoe or whatever, now we have to take our shoes off, at the airport. You know these are things that it seemed like it was okay and we accepted. But now you talk about a piece of cloth that's going over your face where people are literally wanting to assassinate a governor over a mask. And when you talk about freedoms, it's like you have freedoms for one group of people, but you don't have freedoms for another group of people. So that whole thing about I want my freedom, I want my freedom, I want my freedom too, but it should apply to everyone. And again, if you can put your seatbelt on because it's the law, you know why is it why did COVID become so political? And it became political when it hit the United States last year in 2020. It became extremely political, but that's just my opinion. So, does anyone want to answer that, or I will go on to my next question? Does anybody want to make a comment? No? Okay, so this is my next Dear Abby question. Um, can the truth of history be ignored? And what I mean by that is when you look at history as a whole, um, can you ignore it? Or do you just want to pick and choose what fits a narrative or what seems right? Okay, OJ says no. Okay, all right. Does anyone else? Never should be ignored. Juju says no. Okay. Um, I say no. History, you can't rewrite it. You can try to hide it, but you can't rewrite it. I didn't mean to, you know, make that rhyme, but it is what it is. So, does anyone have? You can't rewrite it. No, you can't. Um, but I think some people uh, try to ignore it. Hello, 100 Yardo Chemist. How are you? So, does anyone want to respond to what I just said, or Think I'm talking out of, think I'm wrong, or what do you think? Crystal Man, do you want to make a comment?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I guess it sounds strange to say this out loud because it would seem to be a contradiction in terms, but I agree that we shouldn't, you can't change the truth. But I think for starters, before we even go down that path, we have to agree on what's the truth. And where do you find the truth? Is it in history books? Is it on the news? Is it in the newspaper? Um, I think that's part of where, people like to say things like, I'm going with my truth. And I've always had trouble with that phrase because to me, what that's saying is I know the facts, but I'm going to interpret things differently based on how I feel, based on my emotions. And so suddenly something that's not factually correct becomes somebody else's quote unquote truth because they've chosen to see it in a way that suits their position, kind of back to the positions people have been invested in all their lives. And so I think it gets convoluted and it can get to be a little bit contrived because now all of a sudden everybody is speaking their truth. And do we have any facts to back up our truth?
Well, I think when people say that they speak their truth, because I have said that, many times, and when I say, speaking my truth, I'm going to use an example, and I'm going to talk about race. As an African American, as an African American woman, I can speak my truth of what it's like to be followed around in a store. I can speak my truth of what it means to go somewhere with a group of white people, go to lunch or something, and see how their how people treat them and how they treat me. Um, so that is my truth, and people can say, "Oh, you're too sensitive. You're too that. You're too that." Well, until you have been in my shoes and have experienced this, it is my truth. It is what I it is factual. And then when you look at history, there are things that have happened to certain groups of people that will never ever happen to another group of people, but yet, the people that it never happens to want to say, well, get over it, move on. Well, no, because history is still affecting us. So that is my truth. So,
Well,
okay, Kimma says, should it be no, but history has been ignored and changed in this country, and in some cases erased and rewritten. And exactly, it has been, erased and rewritten. And when you look at history books, I mean, who are they written by? History books for the most part are written by white people. And you're not getting all of history. So, it, you know, you can't erase and rewrite it. And I'm going to open up another can of worms. And this one, people will either disagree with me or agree with me. When people started talking about, with when Black Lives Matter and uh, people started talking about taking down the Confederate statues. As a Black person, I say no, leave them up. Because to me, taking down a Confederate statue is erasing history. If that statue of, whomever, that, general or Custer or whatever, is taken down, you're erasing who these people were. Yes, they could have been a great general, whatever, but they also had slaves. They also wanted to annihilate the Native American nations. So while that statue is standing there, to me, it's like, okay, let's talk about who this person really was. When you go to Monticello and you see, Thomas Jefferson, okay, he was president. He was involved in the Declaration of Independence, but he also had slaves. He also, raped a black slave who was 14 years old and had 9 children with her. So let's talk about that. So I say leave those statues up. Leave them up. Let them fly their Confederate flags. Let them fly them in all their glory, because their history is connected to us. And if we take them down and put them in a warehouse, we're allowing them to erase part of us. That's all I have to say. Does anybody have a comment?
I have a comment. I agree that I don't look at the fact, people are, I could see some people's reasoning for wanting to take them down because you could play both sides of that, because some groups are wanting to take those statues down because of who those people represented, and some impressionable young person that may not know the true history of that person, or maybe they were taught in school in history class in the fifth grade that statue of that Confederate general or soldier is to be commended because they did such a great thing for the U.S. So there is part, I can see both parts, but you're right. I do think that the statue takes away the history, but at the same time, I don't want those people to be glorified as saints or heroes when they did atrocities to our nation. And on the same note, I think that buildings who have been named in honor of people like that to me should be renamed. That's not like a statue, but it should be renamed, because if you name a building after a person, then that person is usually looked at as someone who did good.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no problem with renaming a building. If a person's true history has been revealed that they aren't really a good person like they were thought to be. But again, like I said, I do think the statues are a different story. I'm kind of like, yeah, I think it should stay because of what it represents. But then again, there is a part of me that says no, it should go, because there may be young people who don't know the real story, and they may not have been taught that this person is really not what you think this person is. So that's just my.
And thank you, chat lady. And and that's why I think that uh by leaving statues up, and when history books are written, um you know if you're going to glorify someone, then let's look to see if they really deserve that glory, because you could be a great general on one end, but be this horrible, evil person on the other. And I just look at something like uh the Middle Passage. That I learned about the Middle Passage when I was very, very young. And you have a lot of people who don't know what the Middle Passage was, or they didn't learn about it until later. And you know over 20 million Africans were transported from Africa to places in America, to the British Isles, Jamaica, just all over. And 12 million of those people did not survive. So, and I'm talking about did not survive the Middle Passage. And the Middle Passage did not start in 1619. It started like around 1502. And in that time, when you know slaves were coming across on the Middle Passage, and even when they said that it was illegal and people were still doing it, illegally, over 7,500 ships sailed to make that journey. So when I think about that, it's like you didn't learn about that in school. I learned that from other African Americans and from people, like my grandparents and my great grandparents. That's not taught in school. That should be in history books. So, you know, um, I don't think history should be ignored. Does anyone want to make a comment? Okay, Kimma says the ability to write history is the biggest spoil of war, in my opinion. Should it be okay? So when you say the biggest spoil of war, what do you mean? And and another thing that I want to point out is when you look at history, things that shouldn't be ignored. You look at people like Native Americans who um, gave so much to this country. They did so much for this country, and their history is just being erased. They're being erased. They were shoved onto these reservations and what have you, and just we're just going to forget about you. And I think of people like that. When you look at theater and arts and music and what have you, I mean, there's just so much history out there that people just don't know, and they should. So it's not just about slavery and you know uh, Custer's Last Stand or something like that. It's also you know um, theater and arts and cooking and all this other stuff. Food. There's just so much out there that people just don't know, and it's being, in my opinion, ignored. All right. Does anybody want to make a comment? Because I have one last question, and it is a loaded one. All right. So, my last question is, do you think people would kill, literally kill, to win an election? And I say yes. And I'm not just talking about the United States, I'm talking about across the board because it has happened. It has happened. Um, do you think that the people who are willing to kill to win, an election, um, are people who are just so wanting? Yes, it does. It happens regularly all over the world. It absolutely does. Um, do you think those people are who are willing to do that are people who just want to stay in power forever, or they just want their own uh, agenda to be put forth or whatever? I hope I'm making sense. So that is the last question that I have. Would anyone want to?
I'll comment. Uh, I definitely do believe that people will kill to be in power. Power is everything to a lot of people, and power involves money. And I definitely think people will kill for power to be elected. I think they've been doing that since the beginning of time, all the way back to the biblical days. They were killing off kings for power, killing off all the descendants of kings for power. So I definitely see that as
Do you think that in America, and this is I was just listening to what you just said. I just came up with the fourth question. Do you think in America, in terms of elections and power and things like that, do you think that we would ever be able to have a true third party? Whereas, like in the UK and they have multiple parties and what have you. In uh, um, other countries, they have more than one, or I'm sorry, more than two parties. Do you think that America will ever get to the point where we would be able to have a true third party? Would anyone like to answer that one? Okay, Crucible Man, you should be able to unmute yourself. You should be able to mute yourself and unmute yourself, but I'm muted you. So you are on.
Thank you. First of all, I don't. I think people would kill if they thought they could get next week's lottery numbers. I mean, I think I don't mean that quite literally, but I do think we have become an immoral or amoral society where people rationalize behavior, even killing, in the service of whatever pursuit of whatever goals, whether it's financial, whether it's political, whether it's power. If people thought they could get away with it, I think people would make a case to say, well, I didn't want to kill that person, but my agenda was so much more important, was so much bigger, that it really had to be done in the service of a bigger picture type of a thing. So I think people are capable of all kinds of rationalizations. As far as the third party thing goes, no, I don't think it's possible, because I think it takes so much money today. And you would have to come up with, I think, a fairly radical platform in order to differentiate yourself from the two existing political parties. And that would involve some, maybe some of the combination of the Socialist Party, the Green Party. I think it would have to almost by design be a fringe type of a party in order to stand out and give a clear choice from the other two. And in so doing, I believe it would hurt the credibility, and people would kind of go, I love a third party, but you people are nuts.
Well, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I'm looking at what Shy Lady and Kimma says. Okay, Shy Lady says, I don't think we probably will, but I think the current two-party system is too divisive. And Kimma says, not as long as we have political control over media and media control over the masses. Now, I agree with both of those, and I do agree with you, Crucible Man, when you say that it would take a lot of money. But considering that you have one party that thinks one way, and you have another party who thinks another way, if you just had one person who got up and was just that middle of the road person that you can't, I know you can't please everyone. Everyone's always going to have something to say. But if you just had that one middle of the road person who wasn't, really far, right, really far left, but they were just in that middle of the road and they were trying to start their own party. Do you think that is at all possible? And why does it work in other countries, but it can't work here? Anybody?
Well, I think the challenge would be coming up with a palatable platform that appeals to enough people who are disenchanted with the current party system, and be able to siphon off enough support and enough voters for that platform. And I just don't know how, unless you deliberately stake out a contrary position to the other parties, simply to stand out and simply to attract attention, regardless of the plausibility or credibility of your platform, I just think it would be hard to siphon off enough voters to make that party viable, just because, how many new ideas are there out there really that people would go, you know what, that's not so crazy anymore. I just think the combination of money and a lack of meaningful ideas would hinder any kind of third party growth.
Okay, I want to comment on what you just said, and I'm also looking at what Kimish just said. We've had so many candidates like that, but the media kills their voice. Okay, I agree with you. So let's take the media out of it for a moment. Let's take the media and social media out of it for the moment, and you have that person who is speaking to the masses, because people are not happy with what the right is doing. People are not happy with what the left is doing. But this, one or two people, they're trying to just come in the middle. Do you think that is possible then? And again, why is it possible in other countries but not in America? Anybody?
Well, I'll jump in again real quick. I think maybe it's just that maybe other countries are a little bit more open minded and not quite as entrenched in these lifetime positions, and maybe after years of futility on the part of the existing political parties, they're just more willing to take a risk. They're just more willing to be swayed to another side. I agree with Shy Lady. We are extremely divisive with the two parties today, and I don't know that a third party necessarily would reduce or eliminate the divisiveness. I just don't know that we as Americans are open-minded enough to consider something like a third party. That's just I don't know anything plausible about it, or can I prove it? No, of course not. That's just off the top of my head a possible explanation.
Okay, all right. And then, Kim, I'm going to come back to you. You said the media kills their voice. Um, do you think the media kills their voice because they're not big enough? And what I mean by that is, let's go to the 2016 election when you did have third parties that were running. Do you think the media uh, killed their voice because you had the former guy and Hillary Clinton? Um, uh, they were more prominent than someone like I can't even remember her name, Jill. I can't remember her name. I'm sorry. The media killed killed my memory. That you know the media is going to give the mic to people who are more prominent, who are more known than that one, person who's trying to, make a statement or make their point, because they threaten our current system. Okay. Okay. All right. So that would mean that the media makes their money off of being able to keeping chaos going. I guess the media. Um, they. Okay. All right. All right. So this is very interesting, and that's why I wanted to do this, because everyone, some of your opinions were different, and some of your opinions were the same. And Crucible Man, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to mute your mic. So am I still boring today?
Not so far, no. I just stand corrected.
All right. Well, I try not to be boring. I try not to be boring. Okay, that's why there's so much fake news. It sells. Yes, there is. There's fake news across the board, but there's also a lot of I'm going to use this word. There's also a lot of propaganda out there that is not helpful. So I'm going to ask one more question, just going off of what something that Shy Lady said when you said that. Where is it? Where you said that. Uh, okay, the current two party system is too divisive. So let me ask this: how do we get out of this mess? How do we get out of this divisive mess that we're in? What do we need to do? Does anyone want to take that one? How do we, try to get to a halfway decent kumbaya state? Or are we never going to get there? More intellectual honesty. Look at governments who are successful. Okay. What governments are successful, such as? But looking at governments who are successful, doesn't is it the government or is it the people? Because yes, the governments, they can come out and they can make comments and what have you, and on both sides comments have been made, whatever, that are absolutely ridiculous. But it's the people who are believing it. It's the voters, the masses, it's the people who are believing, whatever news is out there, and they're acting on it. So is it more so the government that's going to change the divisiveness of this country, or is it the people in the country?
I think we need a new system. I don't know what that could be, but all of this mudslinging, the last election, where you know, not this, not yeah, the last election, in the election before the 2016 election, and then the one 2020, they were both bad in terms of the debates. It's I just thought it looked unprofessional on different parties. The just the mudslinging. It's just not good. It's just not good. And I know that it's all political, but it all funnels down to how Americans are treating one another as well. Oh, you're a Dem. You're a Republican. You're this. You're that. It's just not good, in my opinion.
Okay, so is it the government or is it the people that need to change? Because every time, I don't want to hear that everything is always the liberals' fault. Everything's always the conservatives' fault. That's why I said a couple of shows back, if you're being honest, you're going to look at both sides and see that both sides have issues, serious issues. But taking it away, let's step out of Congress for a moment. Let's step out of the White House for a moment. Let's go into the streets and look at the people. Are we the ones that have to change in order to make government change? That when they're saying things, or someone's saying something that's just absolutely ridiculous, that we push back and we say that's not right, that's not good for our country. We the people have to be the ones that step up. Anybody? Crucible Man, did you want to say something?
Yes, I think I think it kind of goes back. I made a comment in the chat box about intellectual honesty. I think it kind of goes back to what I said earlier on the show about being invested in our positions. And I think people, they would rather stay on their side, regardless of what facts may contradict their position. Um, Their friends are on that side. They've come to see their identity as linked to that particular side. And so, unless people are willing to be more honest and admit when they're wrong, I mean, I certainly try to do that. I'm not perfect at it, but I don't want to be invested in a position that's been disproven or that has been shown to be flawed at best and dishonest at worst. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be that guy. But I think until we're willing to admit that we're wrong, or you know what, I didn't know that, or until I saw that program, I was not aware of that. Until we're a little bit more conciliatory towards each other and not having to win every last argument, I don't see a whole lot changing.
Okay. All right. But I still come back to, okay, let me read what Chemist is saying. The media is for sale here, as with most things. The more fire you get behind a movement here, the more you can change things, but it must be a massive, uncontrollable amount. Okay, and Juju says the Justice for J6 rally aims to support insurrectionists charged in the deadly January 6th Capitol riot. Organizers say it is scheduled to start at noon Eastern on Saturday. Okay, and even for something like that, I come to, is it the people that need to change? Do again, no one wants to get behind a person who is talking out the side of their mouth, whatever. But unfortunately, people have gotten behind people who are like that. So again, I say, is it government that we need to be concerned about, or is it the people who are voting these people in? Is it the people who go, and mail in their ballot, or go to the or stand in line on election day or whatever? Are we responsible for putting these people in office? Are we responsible for putting people in office who will make our country divisive, who will, put our country at war or at peril? Are we responsible for putting someone in office who will make it a better place? Where does our responsibility start? Because to me, it starts with us. Because if it's not for us, these people would not be in office. Hello, Doss. Welcome. So that's a whole other bucket of worms. Yes, it is, Chemist. Yes, yes, it is. I mean, again, I'm just saying, if people are being honest, just you have to look at everything. You just can't look at one particular party or one particular, person. You have to look at everything, and the masses are the ones that are putting these people in office. Okay, the media sells these people, and most buy into it. Millions of campaign dollars go to the media. Yes, they do. You're absolutely right. Welcome, the dude Sean. So yeah. So, does anyone else have anything that they want to say? Any last comments? All right. Well, once again, guys, I appreciate the participation. I appreciate you coming and giving your opinion. And again, I have to just really say thank you so much that that even though we may disagree on things, that we keep it civil, and uh you know and long as we can keep it civil, you guys can always have the mic. So on that note, this is my Friday. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I am Solid Blue Sister, and I am going to say, speak your truth. This is my turn to talk, and I will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye. Happy weekend to you too, Juju. Enjoy your pool time. And thank you, everyone, for liking the show. Thank you, Dude Sean, Juju, Shy Lady, Crucible Man, OJ 28, I'm sorry, and 100 Yardo Chemist for participating. I appreciate it. Thank you, Shy Lady. I love the music too. I went through a lot of different tracks, and this is the one that just fit. So thank you. It's called Crazy. But thank you. And at Shy Lady Facts. Not sure what you mean by that, dude, Sean. And Juju's laughing. Oh boy. As you have an entire pool to yourself. You're welcome, dude Sean. I did follow you. Had a hard time finding your show though. I know, we do enjoy Juju. All right. Oh, the music is bumping facts. Okay. Let's see. I found this show. I did find one show. I found one show, dude, Sean, but it was back in March, and you gave another one. But when I tried to pull that one up, I couldn't find it. So, are you on like once a week or on more often? How often do you stream? Fridays and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, do you always publish your shows or you don't publish? Because again, I just found under the Dude Show, and I just found one, and it was back from March. Okay. And that is it, everyone. Thank you so much. I will see you on Monday. Bye. I hardly publish, gotta catch it live. Bye, everyone.